Okay. All right, welcome to the Quarry Valley Unified Union School District Board meeting. We can all stand and say the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so let's have the approval of the agenda.
We have two additions that we need to make. One is we need to add a resignation under personnel. And that was in the board resource folder, will not be in your packets. And then we also need a new business, a capital maintenance fund request. Or to add new business.
Add new business under 7.
We would do that, just we would create number 7, or slide everything down.
So now we can have approval of the agenda. All right. Any general, excuse me?
Have to vote on.
Oh, and do we have a vote? Motion? I make a motion.
I need a motion. Call the vote.
Okay, can we call a vote? To
Yeah.
pass the agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good. All right, so now, general public comments. Any general public? No? Consent agenda action, approval of minutes from the June 13th meeting.
Should we wait until you make the motion, because I want to add something?
You make the motion first, then there's discussion. Yep.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I want to just add something to the, when we were doing the member, it just seemed, and you know, however it goes is however it goes, but it seemed, can you two? Okay. That there was an awful lot of really good discussion. And can you two look? Okay. And I just would like it to, especially since this is a community member coming in, we did a lot of work on it. So that's just my opinion. And so I re-watched it and put some stuff together. So I'd like to add that to the member to member. But I'll go whatever the board wants.
Making a motion for that?
That to add this to the minutes.
To the minutes?
Yeah, under member to member.
Motion.
You want that? No? Okay. Okay.
Any discussion whether we add this to the minutes or not?
Well, Jay can't see it, and he was a pretty integral part of the discussion.
Do you want me to read it?
I don't know. It seems pretty,
I just thought this was a parent that came, and if you ever wanted to know how hard I think the board worked to try to come up with a reasonable request, that he could see that we really worked very hard on that. Everybody got an opportunity to talk and clarify and discuss that it wasn't something that we just, oh, let's just, and that's the way, you know, it's, I'm not saying the paragraph is bad or anything, I'm just saying, I thought the board worked really hard on on trying to do the very best for the student and the parent request. That was the only reason. But That's all.
So would your motion be to add it to the minutes without comment?
Yes. Thank you, Mike.
So we have to put on this the who wrote these because,
Right.
so.
Right. So it's not an endorsement, it's just added
It would just be an
Right.
addendum to the
To the
discussion.
We just have to put submitted by Linda Smith
Yeah.
on the bottom, just so.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would- Right,
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So what you're just asking for now is it okay to add it to the minutes without comment?
Okay, so we're going to add this to the minutes?
Add as an addendum.
As an addendum.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was your motion, right, Lynn?
Yes. Yeah. Not to replace it, just to add to it so that, yeah.
Okay, so do we have a,
I'll make the motion.
okay,
Discussion.
any discussion on this?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion added.
Can I do that? Linda, would you do an electronic copy to Christine, just so she can attach this? And then on the bottom, just put like submitted by Linda Smith?
Yep.
Fill it back.
Yep, I'll send it to
Great, thank you.
her Monday, because she's off this week.
That's fine, Monday's fine.
Okay, I'll send it to her Monday.
So,
Okay.
Jay, I'll send you a copy.
So now you have
I'll send it when I get home to you, so you can see it. I left out all the bad stuff you said.
So you need a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, so make a motion to approve the minutes,
I'll do that.
okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any discussion? Any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to approval of warrants.
So moved.
All right. Personnel? Oh, any discussion on the warrants? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Personnel?
you have to read all of them.
Contract? I don't know if there's a model, right?
You could just say contract as presented, but we can add this to the,
I'll make a motion that the conduct recommendations as presented.
Is there any discussion on these?
There's a resignation later on.
we already had it, Joe.
Yeah, but that, she's in there for those two as well.
Yeah, that's okay, that would automatically hold up, yeah, so,
Yep.
yep.
Just want to make sure.
Yep.
All in favor of the contract recommendations?
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Okay.
Then you have to make, right?
And do we go to the resignation part now?
Yes, we have one resignation. This is something that was given to us last minute. There was a copy of the letter in the board resource folder. This is for Joanna to call. So just asking the board to approve the resignation.
So moved.
Discussion?
Is there any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay, old business. Any discussion? Any,
Is there supposed to be somebody here from select board for that discussion? Because we
For the
tabled it.
tennis?
It was-
Eric had said that Jeff, the select board chair, was going to be in attendance tonight, but I did not see him, so.
Motion is tabled. Till next month.
okay, so I'll make a motion to probably discuss this next month then. So,
Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right,
Yeah, one opposed.
one opposed.
Two.
Two.
Wow.
Okay.
I make the motion, we may have to read it.
Okay. All right. Two? Write that down. Oh, got it. All right. Okay, you got it. The board work retreat.
We have.
No, new business.
We had it, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Captain request, and, I'll turn over to Jen.
Okay.
So, we are having our roof replaced, which you guys had previously approved, all the insurance was being paid for. They are showing up to do the work, and the HVAC system, as Louis had previously said, there might be some additional costs with this. Needs to be taken off the building so that we can do the roof replacement. And so Louis asked that I request that the $30,000 to take the HVAC off, so they can do the roof replacement and put it back on, which requires a crane. That's why it's so expensive. Come out of the capital maintenance fund.
And we do, just for the board's information, we do have $874,520 in capital maintenance.
How old is the HVAC system?
Pretty old.
So are they gonna,
They-
you don't know the answer to this, they're gonna take it off and say, oh, we can't put it back on.
No,
So
part of their
might as
quote.
well buy new.
Their quote actually.
We all know how this
Yes,
works.
their quote says to hook it back up and make sure that it's running properly. So it
They don't
has,
get paid till it's running properly.
that's what it says in their quote, to like ensure, test that it's running properly.
Okay.
Now, I can't promise
No,
you
no,
that that's gonna-
I know you have nothing, I get it.
I can't
know how
promise
this works.
you. Yes, yes, it is older.
So you need a motion.
So there's a motion on the table to approve of this, of the,
Somebody has to make the motion.
So moved.
Lisa made the motion to approve the
Got it,
30,000
yeah.
out of capital fund.
okay, we make the motion to approve 30,000 out of capital funds. All right. All in favor?
Discussion.
Oh, a discussion?
Well, you can't repair the roof until you remove it.
Right.
So it's sort of like ridiculous, you have. I mean, I don't like spending the money either, but this does not, this doesn't require a huge amount of discussion, at least by my board, so I'd say you gotta do it.
Not covered under insurance.
No, it was not. I guess someone probably could get underneath it, like a little tiny person could get underneath it, and you could try to do that, but they were like, no, we will ensure that this is not properly about this roof, so.
You mean you could pay a little person $5,000 to do it?
If they could get someone to squeeze me under there, maybe, I don't know.
Are you volunteering on it?
You know, I'm shrinking every year, so I have no problem. Anyway.
So, all in favor of this?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so now the board work retreat. We want to reschedule it, I guess, to August 8th.
I did a,
So facilitator?
speaking with Debbie Singheiser, who was the facilitator that the board had requested, as it was not available tonight, and so as opposed to just trying to find someone else, when I spoke with Eric, suggested we just bring it back to the board to see, one, if the board would like to have Debbie come August 8th to do the board workshop / she's available that night, or if the board would, if it wants to do, has another plan, so just for discussion.
Okay.
It's more how the board wants to proceed with their workshop and retreat.
Any discussion on that?
Again, it is what it is. Yeah.
So the motion is we will have the meeting on August 8th with Deb as the facilitator. Is that all in agreement here? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
So Jessica, would the meeting start at 5 with our board meeting, or the board workshop at 6, similar to what we're going to do tonight? I just want to
The board
We can say-
early at 5.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And is the meeting going like the other one till 9 o'clock?
No, we will do 2 hours from 6 to 8.
Okay.
So meeting at 5, the retreat will start at 6 to 8. On the 8th. All right. All right. Okay, so,
Put it on for future reference.
any general public comments?
I would just like to introduce Mark Dudsack. This is our new Associate Principal Athletic Director at Fulton High School.
How's it going?
Put a face to the name.
Here? And everyone's welcome to attend our back-to-school barbecue on Tuesday, August 27th at 5 o'clock. at high school.
Is Tim cooking?
Ronnie.
So future meeting dates, we already decided was the 8th, and the retreat's the same night. Do we have agenda ideas for this retreat? Anyone?
I think we added it in the last meeting, didn't we?
I don't
It's in the
think we
minutes.
were very clear on
I
that
didn't think we had a
personally.
real idea.
I thought that was kind of like word salad, but
I have it. Oh, I didn't bring it. But I know that when I went
Just for
through it,
reference,
it was
The other boards
business.
have all worked with district quality standards, and they've worked with that. The SU board has done that, the Well Springs board has done that, the Rutland Town board is all, that's been kind of
being,
the main driver of their workshop retreat is going through the district quality standards, doing some reflection, and then setting some goals based upon district quality standards, just for your information.
I thought we talked about the strategic plan, because we were supposed to read that before I had
the
that.
problem is I don't think that, the expectation is that the facilitator is going to be able to facilitate effectively about our strategic plan, and I don't think that is going to happen. I mean, and we were here till 9 o'clock.
Her emphasis was on board management.
Yeah,
And
and the district quality standards, because that's going to be something, and you spoke about this at the last meeting,
2025, yeah.
that I mean, how are they gonna hold your feet to the fire? Oh, they don't know. What is it gonna mean? Oh, I don't know. The legislature, the AOE, all these people have put these things together that we're supposed to be doing. And I think kind of the consensus out of the SU meeting was there's a lot of things that we need to be focusing on. It's kind of silly that these are the things that we're focusing on. And that, I think that was kind of the general consensus across from members across from the SU. But that's what we did, and they really want us to focus on these. And then that was how you built your goals from that, and I'm guessing that's what Well Springs and Rutland Town did as well then.
Correct.
And I guess when we sat in small groups and talked, and you talk about that, I mean, you're looking internally at yourself, so you're, you know, we were thinking about the strategic plan and those kinds of things about, you know, where there's a hole, what you're going to try to do. Picking, well, she said 3 to 5 goals. I think 5 goals is excessive. I think 3 goals is reasonable. And then really kind of how does that fit in or with your strategic plan? How are you going to make that work? And because the strategic plan, while that's what's moving us forward, as a board, we really aren't moving the pieces, I guess, so to speak, right? That's more like building admin, the superintendent, curriculum director, like that, and then they're coming back. That's why we're kind of starting, it's a 5-year plan, but in year 1, this is what we're doing to move it along. I think a huge component of our goal is to support the strategic plan, to, through the budget, through meetings, through communication and community support, And that was a piece where I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, like, the majority felt like that was kind of, the piece that was lacking was the community piece. And so there was conversation about maybe having, some kind of community forums and things like that about your goal with respect to the strategic plan. The problem is, we have these meetings and nobody, it's like budget meetings and 8 people show up, so, but, so that was kind of the genesis of what we spoke of. And the goals we may come out with, looking at the district quality standards, may be very different and probably are than the SU board, and I don't know what Wells or Rutland Town were, so, but I think there's 13, right? I can't remember now, it was like 2 pages of them, so.
13 or 14, I can't remember.
And they're broken up into sections, so you're kind of picking from each section.
Right.
So.
But I also thought we were gonna, we've talked about this and talked about this and talked about this in terms of money. We're to not have any, we don't have any money, and the people don't know it, and we're going round and round, and how are we going to keep everything afloat? And we've never, it's like a conversation, it's like the white elephant in the room. Here we are, yes, we're talking about the 2025 goals and everything, and we go around it again, and Tom asks, and I ask, and Eric asks, and we never really hit upon the thing of what are we going to do when we have to go to the communities and say to them, we're going to have to, in order to keep everything going, we're going to have, oh, by the way, your taxes are going to go up, but we're going to have to ask you, because we don't have that cushion anymore. We don't have that $1 million cushion. So when are we going to actually start talking about the thing of how are we going to keep this all going again? And yeah, this is great. I'm for talking about the goals that the AOE has come out with, but they don't really have the answer to who is really responsible. Is it the supervisory union, or is it the district boards, And it just seems like we're just going around in a circle, and we're going to come back to it when we do the budget. And we haven't discussed the money aspect of the fact of how do we keep all these buildings afloat when there is no back money to help us, and we're going to have to go to the public, to the community, to ask for it. And I thought that was one of the things that we were actually going to discuss and have an actual discussion about, in terms of what is it, what are we paying for everything? Do we have the money to continue paying for everything? If we don't have the money to pay for anything, what are we going to do about it? Because we're the representatives of the towns that we live in, and we're the people that they look to make sure that we are giving every child in our school the education that they deserve. And yet like I said, it's that, let's now talk about what we're going to do in 2025, and that's great. We can have a conversation about it, but I'm still worried as a board member how we're going to keep every school going with the students. And I just wish we could these are very hard conversations. Every time we wade into a conversation, it's like, yeah, this is really tough. When we talked about the member to member, very tough conversation, but everybody got a chance to talk. When we talked about what we were going to talk about in the meeting in this month, very tough conversation. So I'm very worried as a board member how we're going to take care of, and I know we have adequate, I'm not saying anything about our administration, I'm not saying anything, I don't want to be disrespectful to them, but they're also, part of this, but we should be part of it also. We're responsible for policies and for money, and we're not just here to have them come and bring it to us and just say, yep, that's good, but This is critical. Vermont is in a critical state right now in terms of what is going on, not just in our district or our supervisory union. Yes, we passed our budget. People were very good to us in our towns. I can't say enough about the people that they, you know, that they went ahead and we were one of the few that passed. Thank you so much. But I want to make sure we're going to keep going. And is there a way we can have a conversation about this and talk about, are we going to have enough money to keep this going for the next year? And we got a strategic plan for 3 to 5 years. Are we going to have enough money in 3 to 5 years that we're going to keep going? And we're going to be able to pay our teachers, pay our administrators? You know, I know, play Blue Cross Blue Shield, you know. I am very, very worried about this. And I just wish we could talk about how much it's costing. Is there enough money in 25, 26 to keep going? You know, I just, like I said, I'm just real worried. And I wish we would have a conversation about it in an opportunity where people can honestly talk about some of the things that that they're thinking about too. And it's not about closing a school, it's about, how did you say it?
Reconfiguration?
What was that?
Like a reconfiguration?
Maybe it's a reconfiguration, but I want to make sure every kid, whether it be Proctor, West Rutland, or Poultney, I don't care. I want every kid to get the best education that they possibly can get. Because that's why I am here, not to close schools, it's to figure out how we're going to make that happen.
But those are two very different conversations, providing the best education and discussion of finances. And I also think that, you know, we have heard since December, it's like penny penny, the sky is falling. And now the tax rates have been set. And that's not true. I don't know what they went up on the municipal side in West Rutland and Poultney, but in Proctor, our tax collectively went up with the school and municipality just right at 5%. So I would anticipate that they are similar probably in Poultney and West Rutland. So we're not in double digits. So I think that's part of sometimes the misinformation that has been put out there constantly since December from Montpelier, from legislatures, from the AOE. And that's not the case currently in our district. But I think having the finances and providing the quality education are two different conversations that you're having.
Right, but one is very dependent on the other. That's what I'm saying. If we don't
But you
have
have
the information to do that, if we don't, that's great, and it only went up 5%. How much do you think it's going to go up the year after that? So can your people in Proctor deal with a 5% next year for 25, 26? And then nothing goes down, we know that. So say it's another 5%. Can they deal in the town of Proctor at another 5%? But you know, it's like, what are we doing? And if the board doesn't want to discuss this, I am one of 9. I will go with what the board decides to talk about, okay? But like I said, I am just really concerned with the communities of, you know, even 5% is a lot for some of the people in the towns that are on, you know, so, okay, I'll shut up.
I just want to clarify, the strategic plan is not adding cost at all. So when we're saying the strategic plan is, you know, what's that going to cost? There's no cost. That's something which we were very careful about. We weren't adding positions. We never had the intention of adding positions or programs. The strategic plan can exist with 3 high schools, can exist with 1 high school.
Right.
It's malleable. I mean, it exists with one elementary school, we could reduce it down to three, one elementary school, one middle school, one high school in Quarry Valley, and that strategic plan would still exist. We could, our current format would still exist. I think the question really it comes down to is, when we look at 5 years from now, what the quality of education, how do we do that, and then what is that cost operating in our current format, current setup? And I just want to make sure, that anyone who's watching this does not think that the strategic plan is adding cost, because that is not it. I say that again. It's never meant to be, does not add cost.
It's a plan. That's, and yes, that's exactly it. It's just a plan of people who sat down and worked for 2 years on trying to figure out and you've got community involved, you've got teachers involved, you've got administrators involved, kids maybe even got into it, and it was a great plan to move forward.
It is a great plan. Not it was, it is.
It is a great plan, yes, okay. And I read it through because I really thought we were going to, but it's okay. Great plan, but again, it's like, everything is going up. I just would like us to look at that's my thing of how we're going to pay for it. I just want to make sure that we have looked at it in the right way to make sure that we can pay for these kids to get the best, because I mean, there's not a person here that doesn't love their community, doesn't love their schools, doesn't love their kids, their grandkids, whatever. Just want to make sure we can do it, because I believe that we can. I think we're one of the best, districts, because we do have very passionate, wonderful people working, and I'd like to make sure that it continues. And I don't know why we just can't have a discussion about the money, why it's such a red, like I said, an elephant in the room to talk about it.
I'll just say, and then I figured, I said this all along, the conversation really is about visioning out 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. Can we continue to afford to operate 5 schools? That's the conversation, I think, what you're trying to get to, correct, Linda?
Yep.
It is just, what is the, as a board, you're supposed to be fiscally responsible, just have a conversation as you look at the cost of operating 5 different school facilities, and then what burden does that place on taxpayers, particularly in this budget situation we find ourselves in. And I think that's one aspect, is just around the operational cost. And then as we look at, is that a hindrance to our child's education? So as we, and Jen and Jay and Joe, myself had conversations for the past 4 years about, high schools and things we'd love to do. And while we think it's great that we have 3 high schools, but we also understand there are limitations that 3 high schools put on us and place on us as we try to look at what we'd like to do for our students and the opportunities that we'd like to provide for our students. And those are just realistic conversations that we have on a regular basis. But like I said, I think just, that's a conversation that not just our district, but our district we're going to have is the cost to operate schools and our, moving forward and what that looks like. And what impact POES may have on, to helping offset some of those costs in our districts and our SU.
And if you look at the standards are somewhat in terms of, that's what we're supposed to be doing also. You can stick in the conversation of saying, we're trying to do the things that these standards are saying, that we want to make our kids have the best education possible. But they're very tough conversations to have, because we are all invested so much in our communities, where we've lived all our lives. I watched my kids go through the school. I'm watching my grandkids go through this. My kid and my grandkid go through the school. So yes, we're invested. But even if we decide at the end of it that at least we've had the conversations to talk about that. And that's what I was hoping that we would start to do during this, is to talk about that. That would be the main topic of discussion, of leading us through in terms of, how much are we paying for it and what's you know, so we would need some business figures to find out about, you know, and the costs that are, everything is going to continue to go up, everything. Nothing is going to ever go down. So how do we make sure that we are doing what we can with the kids in the focus, not us, not anybody else? How do we keep the kids in the focus? Like pretend they're not our, you know, that we're here now and this is a new school and we want to give all, you know, it's almost like you got to go from that perspective. It's not about me or my community, it's about my kids in my community, your kids in your community, your kids in your community. What are we doing to offer them the best in education right now?
So can I ask a question? Is the point of the retreat to have the discussion or to come up with your goals that formulate your discussion over the course of the year?
And while I agree with what Linda brought up, we also, though, thanks to your legislature, district quality standards, which is what we talked about at the SU, we are going to have to address that, either whether we do it at a retreat or whether we do it at a regular board meeting. I think the consensus was at our retreat from the SU, that's when we did that part of it, because we are mandated to do this.
I know that 2025.
Yeah, so, are you talking about agenda items for that retreat? Because it may be 60-40 or 70-30 or something to that effect, or
Right.
maybe not at all. Maybe we want to do this on a separate night, or maybe we want to do what you have suggested.
Or
on a
one
separate
per
night.
meeting. You
Yeah.
could take it one per
Yeah.
meeting and look at it. Because, I mean, when I was at the retreat, I thought, when I went through them for Quarry Valley, just for Quarry Valley, I thought we were doing pretty good. I went through them and gave us, I didn't give us A's, but I certainly gave us some B pluses, and we were at least, I think, on most everything, right in the middle. I thought our board was doing really well in terms of where we were and where we're going. So we could take them one at a time. Again, I'm just, you know, I have always been a worrier. I will die as a worrier. It's a pain in the neck to carry it, but it's who I am. And I just don't want to see anything happen to our kids when we're close. I mean, we're hearing all these great things about what's happening, how these kids are now going up. I mean, not that they weren't before, but we've got now all this wonderful, we've evaluated the kids, we've got the kids that are at the bottom, in the middle, at the top. All this stuff is happening when the last 3 years I was on, it's happening now. And we're getting all these great reports of how they're doing in math and language. We're going to be setting standards for social studies and science and health, and you know, that is great. How do we make sure that we continue, because you know you have to have money. You have to have the money to do that. And if we don't have the money, then we cut. And you know what happens when we watch other districts, supervisory unions have to cut programs because they don't have the money. I don't want to be there. I want to make sure we're one step ahead of it. So, again, I'm sorry.
Is there a specific focus that you would like me to bring to Deb Singleiter for the meeting on the 8th?
I'm not sure that she would be in a position to manage a discussion concerning finances other than to facilitate an early conversation. I think her focus was more on the standards that as a board we're going to be judged by. So I mean, there may be two different things. So
She could facilitate it if the board wishes a discussion around visioning in terms of where they see yourselves and then setting a plan, because she could facilitate that to help the board set a plan, conversations, you know, over the course of whatever set amount of time the board decides, you know, and then, because this is kind of a conversation that we're going to resolve in one meeting, you know, in terms of where we're at, but it's also,
No, it's not.
you know, applies, you know, March of next spring, we'll have an idea in terms of what we like to do or whatever, whatever the board decides, but, she could facilitate that. And I know that other boards within our SU took this on. It was kind of similar approach, but it was kind of very messy at the beginning, where we had a lot of ideas, a lot of feelings, but then a step back and really kind of take a look and answer the question of, first, why? Why are we doing this? What is, so if we're looking at consolidation, reconfiguration, whatever you want to, take, whether, our 5 buildings are feasible, whether we look at, looking at, 3, 4 or 5, whatever it may be, but the question is why? What is the purpose? What's the rationale behind this? If there's a fiscal approach or, a financial approach in terms of, obviously, we all know that if you reduce one building, you're going to reduce cost. But what's the con of that? And so, but is there an academic component to reconfiguration? Is there an extracurricular component to reconfiguration that's, by doing this, you increase opportunities for students across the board with the athletics, whether it be like marching band or theater or drama? I think those are conversations that the board first has to wrestle with, is first of all the question of why. And I know that when this was brought up, I think even Sarah Lonas said that's why, and that's a big question. And once the board of the SU really got to the question of why, then they were kind of take a look at, I think an August board meeting, where Lewis and I are coming with 4 different scenarios, and now they're looking at financing and cost. They're having good discussions, but they had to get to that why. It took them probably 6 or 7 meetings to get to that point. But now they're at a point where they're moving forward on exploring just what this is, and engaging with the community around this.
So did they have financial data that they had pre to that? Did they
No.
have population
No,
data?
because it does.
Was it repeated?
Once they identified the why, then they looked at, okay, here are 4 different scenarios that they'd like to discuss with the public. Not saying one was better than the other, and so then once they did that, they asked Lewis and I to, provide ballpark, because we do know, even, I think somebody asked, I think last time, Tom, you'd asked about if a facility is, an operating facility on a Saturday, what's the cost? And that's fluctuating, because we know it depends on, if it's 70 degrees outside, or it's 30 degrees outside, it changes, so we try to give a ballpark. But really, it goes back to the question of why, what is the purpose? And that's where that strategic plan does lay into it too, because if we look at one of the parts of the academic success is obviously we want our kids to continue, to show academic growth. We want to see our kids, achieve proficiency, go on to be successful in post-secondary success. But we also want to see kids have access to a wide variety of course offerings. Once again, we see improved extracurricular opportunities, because we do know that there is research supports that a strong fine arts program does support strong academics. And how do we increase that? And so one of the questions that the board will have to wrestle with is, as we look moving forward in our current setup or in another setup, what does that look like? And I think but those are good discussions that the board, I think, needs to engage in.
So I guess if I was asking her to come and facilitate something, I would like her to help us facilitate a vision for the quality education, or the expectation we have for quality education. And that's around additional electives, extracurriculars, and what that looks like. And I feel like once you have an idea of what that looks like, then you can take that and you can assign a dollar amount to it. But you can also take that and you can look at the 3 campuses that you have and say, oh, that fits on this campus. I mean, I think that also drives down the path if the conversation goes to reconfiguration. One of the things in articles of agreement say that you can change the boundary line, and so you don't have to have school choice then inside your district. Kids they'd have to select, there'd have to be some kind of procedural process in place, but students could select whether they want to go to West Rutland, Poultney, Proctor. That they don't have, you're not then bound by the 6 or whatever number is, because that line has changed. And so but I think you have to have that vision in place. And I think it behooves us as a board to set that vision. Because that vision is not coming from the state. It is not coming from the AOE. It is not coming from the legislature. And we see that they have put this new education commission together that's gonna go around, and everybody has, everyone's been appointed, and in 2025, they're gonna come back and tell us what that means about finances. I don't have great hope for that. Maybe it'll be amazing, but I'm doubtful on that. So I think that it behooves us, as we said here, to create our vision, which part of that is in the strategic plan, of what that looks like for education. Does that look like in Quarry Valley that you have campuses that support different initiatives? Do you have a fine arts campus? Do you have a science and math focused campus? Do you have a more mainstream general ed campus? And what does that look like that then in terms for extracurriculars? Are students then still allowed to, let's say my kid lives in Proctor but wants to go to Poultney for classes. Does that mean then Poultney is their home? Do they play on Poultney, or do we have one team, or do kids come back and play for their home teams or home schools or whatever that is? And I think that as geographically challenged as we are, we have like the West Rutland hub that Mike has kind of spoke about in the past, that you have that ability with buses and transportation to have kids come to West Rutland, and if they're coming from Proctor and they're going to Poultney, then they come to West Rutland and they get on the bus that came from Poultney to drop off kids that are going to West Rutland or Proctor. And I think those are things that all exist, but to me, you have to define what that looks like. What is education? What is, when you talk about high quality education, what is that? Does that mean that we have 15 electives for science? Does that, does that mean that we have a school that's, primarily AP focused? There's a lot of components or a lot of different scenarios to that. And I think that she could facilitate that conversation and put us on a path which would help us then get to, decide what that dollar amount is going to be. And it doesn't mean just because that's what your vision is and the number is this big, that that's what your vision, you can always bring it in so you can live within whatever, or make changes so that you can, completely use that vision. So, but I guess I would like to see the vision of education, and then the second piece about finances.
I agree. I think we need to know where we're going before we can consider talking about money.
And see, I think we do know where we're going, because I think that principals would love to have more electives to offer kids. But how do we offer the electives if we don't have the money to pay for it? Kids would love to have more things. In order for every child to succeed, they're not going to all go to college. They're not going to all go and get a job. They're not going to go to the service. They're not going to go whatever. But we know we need more electives in the schools, because we're trying.
What do we want to do? How many electives? Like, what do we want to do? We need to figure out how many electives, that kind of thing, before we can talk about the financial.
But I think you could get the principals together and they would be able to tell you what the electives that they need. I would think they would have talked. And I'm not, okay, it's just a conversation.
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay, but I would have thought too that is part of, inside of that is knowing that they need more to, so maybe it's starting with, they each would like to have 2 electives in their schools, because it is, I know that talking to the people who do the counselors and they're trying to put kids into classes to make sure that, you know, well, he's not gonna go into physics because, you know, he's just not gonna take physics, but we need an alternative biology class for this child to go into. And we need an alternative history class for this child to go into, or we need, well, not shop anymore, because nobody does shop anymore, you know, and there are no shop teachers out there, but trying to figure out what is out there. And so maybe that is part of it, I don't know. I'm just, like I said, I'm worried we're gonna come back here in, you know, in July, and we're gonna be talking about the same thing in terms of, and not knowing about the money, about how we're going to offer it. And then we're going to go to the community and say, and the community's gonna say, well, we went up 5% in Proctor, maybe we're gonna go up higher, and maybe West Rutland's gonna be lower, but when you put it all together, we're gonna be asking for a budget that goes up into the community. And if we as a board do not start talking about the money that's involved, then the community will do it for us. They will talk to us and say, because there is going to get a breaking point of how much we can offer these students in these 3 high schools, and I'm just talking about the high schools, in how much we can offer them and give them the education that they need to you know, in our mission and our vision, which we have, of what we want them to do when they leave, when they graduate. And if we can't even offer enough courses to each student, and we're shifting, and like I said, the counselors of each school are trying to find courses to put each child in. How do we offer more so that we can give these kids more? And it's all going to come down to money. It's all going to come down to money, because that's the, what do you call it? That's when it hits the fan. You know, that's it. It's about the money. The education, we already know. We've got the strategic plan. We know those kids are going up in math and language, and we know all that. But now we're talking about how do we offer them more. And I think we've already got the vision of doing that we're offering them. Now we got to figure out how we're going to pay for that vision. What are we going to do that? And I think Chris's idea of her facilitating that part of it makes sense to me in terms of how we can do that. And to have the tough conversations, because it is going to be a tough conversation. Because what if one of the people bring up, which has happened, that we have to close one of the schools in a town? You don't think that town is not going to go wild of, you're not closing my school. My school is our hub of our community. But if we don't have the conversation, and maybe somebody told me the other day too, when I was talking to him, maybe it was you, Tom, I don't know, you know, by having the conversation, people might come up with another idea, or we might be able to come up with another idea and not close the school. Maybe there's another way of doing this, because maybe it's the way you were talking about with the campuses. But if we don't have the conversation about the money involved with having the campus, I mean, I would love your idea of the campuses. I think kids would be wild about that. To get more math, to get more math and science courses, because these kids they dream of going into Nassau or whatever it is that they want. That's a wonderful idea. But how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for those campuses?
Linda, not to cut you off.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Cut
Cut me off, please.
Okay, Linda, to cut you off.
Cut me off.
I get what you're saying. You know how I'm very much a figures person. It's what I do daily. But at the same time, at least I 100% what you're saying. I'm leaning more toward what Lisa's saying is we have to get to that vision first. When someone comes to me and they're like, hey, I want to build this giant house, I'm like, okay, they can give me a budget, but by the time I'm done with what they want, they have to trim things back. And I think what Lisa is saying is, let's look at what we want to get to before we can even look at the money and say, all right, this is what we want to look at. That way Louis and Chris can come to us and say, realistically, yay, let's pull the trigger and start making some things happen. Or they're gonna say, no, like, you have to cut some things out, and then you can start reconfiguring your plan. The campus thing, 100%, I agree with it, but I think where Lisa's going is we have to figure out what that looks like before we can have the money talk. Because we can say, hey, what's a $2 million increase in budget look like? Let's run with that. But at the end of the day, it's not gonna be there. We don't know what's gonna happen next year, tax-wise, we don't know. So I think we're looking at an unknown, but we really have to kind of be more realistic about it and rather than say, it'd be great, I mean, we have our budget numbers now knowing where we are, but I think we need to create a plan first before you can just say, well, how much money do we have to work with? Because what happens is you say how much money and then everybody starts having ideas and it spins out of control. I think having a plan that everybody can get on board, that's cohesive and whatever else, then being able to say, all right, is this feasible? Can we do this? But yeah, I mean, obviously the money it's really dependent on each other, but I do think the way to go is to create that plan, create those goals, and see where we need to trim back, where we can move forward, whatever it might be. I understand what you're saying.
Okay. And like I said, whatever, I'm gonna go with what the board says. That's, I've learned that,
I don't think your conversation is off the table. I think that as we're laying things out, maybe it's just not here, it's in the second part. I don't.
What process, we're trying to figure out what the process.
Right. I don't think the conversation, I don't think anyone's saying the conversation doesn't need to take place. It just, I think they're saying your conversation is in the middle as opposed to the beginning. That's my take.
So I think we need to get back to what we need to charge Chris to do so that if we're gonna have the retreat, what the facilitator will be able to, because she'll need a little preparation time, so we need to make sure we give Chris a direction.
I think if she could help us create the process to have the conversation, to set the goals within the visioning so that we can continue on creating what we want our education vision in Quarry Valley to be, and then continue on that conversation to the finances. I don't know, that's probably a little muddy. Huh?
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, I don't know.
I might just share the recording with you.
Okay.
Here's what we talked about.
All right.
I mean, I'd just say that'd be easier. I understand that I think having seen this on all sides, from all perspectives, I do understand there is a need for us to really dive into this and say, where are we heading? I think we have to, because we look at the strategic plan, and Jay, Jen, and Joe, and Mark, you're new to this, but as you work through this, there are limitations, and we understand that. There are things that we've seen this, I've said this before, there are many positives to small schools, but there are also many drawbacks to small schools too. And that's just the reality of the situation. I think people have to understand that. My goal, just as all of our goals, is we want to make sure that every single one of our students has access to a high-quality education. And I always look at it from a high school perspective. The majority of my life has been dealing with high school kids. I always say that when a kid is sitting there staring off at the post-secondary discuss, they have like a buffet of options. That they're not forced to go this route or forced to go this route. That the school has provided them with this, with education that allows them to go with whatever path they choose. The pathways that the state, talks about. And I think as we look at the pathways in our current high schools, we do understand that there are limitations to this. We look at the number of students that are accessing Stafford, they're accessing early college, and we want to bring these kids back into our schools, but we have to look at the reasons why they are leaving, is because of some of these lack of options or offerings for a variety of reasons. Class sizes, we have to look at, trying to, endorse some of these out, but we do have low class numbers, particularly in our high schools, but in our current setup, how do we reconfigure that? And, during COVID, yes, we had an opportunity to take a look at other ways of educating, but these are all good conversations that we collectively have to have, that the community needs to hear us having, because at the end of the day, whatever path that the board sets go, with reconfiguration, consolidation, stay put, the community has to understand that that decision was made with the child's interest in mind, that this is the path going forward that's going to, one, be fiscally responsible, keep the taxpayers in mind, but also saying that your child is going to receive a high quality education and will benefit from this decision, not will suffer from this decision. And that's the purpose of these discussions around this, and I think that's where there'll be some great discussions, there'll be hard discussions, but the community needs to hear us, engage it, because that's that notion of why. That if there ever was a discussion of, and it could very well happen, the state board could sit there and say, hey, well, you know what, GRCSU, you need to close down a school. You could have a bill come through, talk about, as we look at consolidation, we look at POES, what does that mean for the future? There are all sorts of things percolating out there that we don't know, but we really have to take a look at is make sure that for our children that are moving through our educational system, we have to make sure that this is it. So if a kid only has one shot at high school, it's 4 years. For a lot of us, I've been year 32 in education, I've gone through 32 years of high school kids. And there's been a lot of experimentation done in 3 different states with those high school kids.
Sure.
And I always feel bad for those kids, but for those 4 kids, they have one shot at high school, and I want to make sure as a board and as an admin that we are doing our best to make sure those kids receive a high quality education, and when they graduate and they move on, that they sit there and look back and say, hey, thank you because you prepared me. I'm in the place I want to be, not to sit there and say, I wish I had gone somewhere else, I wish I did this because limitations. And I think that's the big question we have to take a look at is, with whatever configuration we move forward with, are our kids going to benefit from that?
And I think maybe that's what she could help us with, maybe with the why, and perhaps with some of those questions, like the questions we need to be asking ourselves, and the questions perhaps she could help us with putting out to the community, help us put that in place. That might be a piece also, because that's going to be an important component, that communication with the communities.
And these conversations do tie directly into the district quality standards, because one of the standards does relate to aligning budget to stated priorities. And right now what the board is discussing is, what are our stated priorities?
Right.
Where do we want to go? What is that vision? The vision is a stated priority. How do we align our budget with that? And
Right.
without throwing, say, telling the taxpayers, well, we're going to just add more money to this. No, it's like, how do we create this but still being fiscally responsible?
Yeah, we have to show
And
that
the
whatever
communication,
we're
right.
creating has value to not just the students, but everyone that's living in that community.
I will reach out to Debbie tomorrow. If you don't mind, I think I'd like to share the recording. I think it might be better just to hear the things that have been said. It might be better just to hear from your mouths as opposed
Yeah,
to me
okay.
trying to play that back, if that's okay. And then just say, can we talk about where they're at, so.
Yeah, okay.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
For those that don't know me, I'm Senator Terry Williams, and I'm your senator until at least January. I'm on the Education Committee, and I have a background in strategic planning. So, and everything I've heard tonight, really, it's a good discussion, it really makes sense. I wouldn't offer to facilitate your planning process, but I would offer to be involved with it. Because I think the first thing you have to do is gather the people in the positions so we don't just try and plan in a vacuum. So having somebody, either myself or Senator Weeks on the Education Committee involved, we could give you the perspective from the legislative side and what we know about the financial. So I throw that out there. You're all my constituents. I live in Pulteney, so I would want to be involved in the discussion anyway. So the other thing is, I reached out to Interim Secretary Zoe Saunders to to have a meeting with her to find out how she's coming on her 100-day plan. I think that's important because they sometimes tend to plan in a vacuum up there too. The biggest concern I got with education in Rutland County is local control. And everything I've heard here tonight says that you want to maintain local control, and you need to, right? Which means that your message has to get back to the state legislature, the administration, about what you want best, what you think is best for your kids. Okay, so I just throw that out there. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be involved, even if I don't get reelected. But you know, and Lisa really is spot on. Everything you said tonight is something that needs to be done. I appreciate the passion too, because we have to have that passion to really make a good job. But you get the right players, and then you start gathering the tools to come up with your vision and your strategic plan. The money is kind of ancillary to it. It's the most important part. But right now, you don't know anything about the funding except what comes from the local. So I briefed the Ways and Means Committee on a different way to fund education back in February, and one of the comments that came out of one of the legislators was, but if you do that, you're going to lose local control. Well, right now, I don't think we've got much local control at all, because the state education funding is what's really pushing everything. So I just want to throw that out there. If you want me involved, if you think it's appropriate, I'll be involved.
The board has every right to invite anyone they want to be part of their process, so it's the board's decision.
Yep, and I can go back to the Agency of Education during the process if we have a question that comes up, so that we don't play on a vacuum, we don't waste energy and effort that doesn't need to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys think we do this, I'm trying to think how to not make everybody mad, including you. We get to this point, and we gotta have plans, and we do meetings and visions, and we're doing this and this, and we never do it. We talk about the same stuff every year, and nothing changes.
States is the same way. They
This
don't,
is, board's the
that's
same
why I
way.
said we need a
Nothing
vision
happens.
at the state level.
We have a vision, but nothing, it doesn't change ever, ever. We have all kinds of meetings, plans, visions, 5-year plan, 40-year plan, and nothing changes.
So the education committee, what we do is set policy for education, but where do we get that information on what you want? That has to get to us from our constituents, either in the form of a bill, then we'll create legislation that will accomplish what we have to do. But it's got to be from the ground up. It's got to be a grassroots. You have to tell, because I work for you, and I want to know what you want, because I can go up there and plan, but 6 months from now, when I find out that you didn't want that, then I wasted my time.
And Tom, in just the short time that I've been here, I feel like we've changed a lot. So.
Little things,
Like,
but
we're
like we
aligned on a
always have.
schedule, we're aligned on a handbook, we're aligned on a program, we're able to move kids around. Like, there are things that, just in the time I've been here, I feel like there are some changes that have happened now. It might not be as drastic or as
Just
big.
small changes, but
Yeah.
we've been together for how many years?
Six.
And we were, we preached it to the taxpayers, this is gonna save you money. It hasn't. And it's gonna give our kids more options. It hasn't,
I'm not sure we preached that it was gonna save money. I think we were told that we were.
No, that was the person the state hired and
Whoever,
sent
but,
around.
and we should.
And we said it's going to save, the first year, you're gonna save $1 million.
And that's fine, but we still haven't, and we created more opportunities for the kids?
Yes,
You think so?
yes. I think my child went through the system, that she had a lot of opportunities. She has gone on and been very successful in college because of the foundation of the teachers that she had, and I think that's true in West Rutland, I think that's true in Poultney. My child's working at
I get all
Girls
that, but
Club
like
with
offering-
kids from Poultney, a kid from Poultney, and they talk about the great things that they have done
But
in
we haven't
their
offered
school.
more, have we?
More classes,
Yeah.
more. I think we change electives based on student need. We put out surveys to students and say, you know, like, is this class a history-focused class? Are you, you know, I think with respect to music and things like that, I've seen a change in that. We
Yeah,
see.
that they do great at, but I'm just talking like math, science.
So Tommy,
I think
College.
you,
Joe, let me- so you're asking some really good questions. And I think, these are questions that need to be asked. And when you talk about, you know, have change, I know that you, because a couple meetings ago, you said, let's, you know, you not talk about closing down the school. That discussion still is, you know, is on the table as we look at consolidation and reconfiguration, where we're at. So that's not necessarily been pushed aside, but I think the question you're asking about opportunities is in the strategic plan. As we look at, we want to look at, you know, path, I talk about pathways as for courses, because courses, you can throw a course, it doesn't really move a kid anywhere else, but we have to look at different pathways and what are the course offerings along those pathways for those students, and how are we limited? And I do think that we found that we are limited in isolation, that from Proctor, Poultney, and West Rutland, that we are limited what we can offer within that building. As we look at across our 3 buildings, there are more opportunities, but there are logistical concerns and issues that we have to deal with that need to be talked about through this visioning. You know, and so when I talk about that glass ceiling, the big question is, have we hit that glass ceiling in terms of, is this current configuration limiting us, hampering us? And would a reconfiguration, consolidation, would that allow us then to move forward, which allows our students, you know, to benefit academically from a you know, extracurricular, from a
More
theater,
kids.
right,
Yeah.
what our kids will be
One
benefit.
spot.
So I think those are conversations that we have to have realistically.
That just seems like it keeps getting, we
No,
want to talk about that, we want to go this route, and we haven't really talked about this route yet.
Well, but I think it goes
You
back
got to talk about everything,
No,
I understand.
But it goes back to the question of the why. If the board would come back and say, we're going to close down a school, the big questions that we have to ask is, okay, why? The board has to answer why.
Right.
It could be because, you know what, our taxes are out of control, we can't afford them, you know, or we want to, you know, increase, you know, academic opportunities, offerings. This is going to be one way we're going to do that, but then what does that look like? And which school would that be? Because then you look at 5-year facility plans, and we have to find that, you know, one school is in much worse shape than another, and that there's a lot of money to be dumped into that. So there's some very complex, nuanced conversations we need to have around all of this. And that I think are important for us to have publicly, that people need to hear us engage in, because at the end of the day, when we sit there and come back to them with a budget, they at least say, okay, they've been working through the numbers, they've been figuring these things out, about how they want to move forward. It's not just, well, we're gonna continue to throw good money after bad and just plug along and say, well, they'll pay for it. Because our students aren't really necessarily benefiting from that. I think that's a conversation we're having here as a Quarry Valley, but also the state is having as well, just where's that crossroads of education of how do we move forward? You know, and the way we fund education in Vermont is unlike any other. But and I think the silver lining in this 5% cap just going the way it went was, I think people had a better understanding of how ed funding works. And the fact that as we as Quarry Valley say that, you know, we're going to continue to fund our 5 schools, that's great that our taxpayers do, but what impact does that have on the states, on the ed fund? And what pressures might we see as a Quarry Valley from people outside of this area, you know, from Montpelier, that's just the reality of the conversation we have to have as well.
Well, to
I
have
think
the-
Senator would agree with that as well.
The conversation that
that's-
Lisa made about your child went to college. Are we doing the same? Are we helping the children that aren't going to college? Are we offering them the course requirements that will help them when they're not going to enter college? You know, what are we offering those kids that are trying to get out and are going to take a minimum wage job?
Yeah, but that's all part of that plan that we start to create when a kid it should start when they enter, freshmen. Some places they start earlier, like, so you already know, like, I want to be an auto mechanic, but I don't want to go to VTC or whatever that is.
They're all Vermont State College.
Okay, whatever. So then the guidance counselor sets up, these are the courses you need to be taking, this is what you need to be doing. We've done preceptorships, internships, different things like that to help a kid. I think that all of our schools are doing the same thing, whether a kid's going to college or a kid isn't going to college. I don't think that there's any tiered system that college is here and the other is here. I think that people in the building are just working to make it the best for kids.
Right, and if
for the
that's a
students.
goal that you guys come out with, you look at the resource pile you have, which includes buildings, and you might decide, listen, we're spending a lot of money sending kids to Stafford. So if we really want to create a vocational center within, like, that is a goal of ours, you look at your resources to do that. You could find that within a town, one of your buildings, if you really wanted to look at your resources and close a building down, is better than the other one, and so you might need to relocate a high school to an elementary, so I think it's important that you know what you want to look at, the direction you're going, and then evaluate the resources you have in order to get there.
Joe, I apologize.
No, it's all right.
I just want to give an opportunity.
No, I was just gonna say to Tom, I said, you were talking about electives, the numbers might not have changed, but the electives have. If you know what I'm saying, is like, we have different teachers teaching the different, we might have 3 math electives every year, but those electives might change year to year, but we still only have 3 that we can offer. But it's not like we've been offering them for 10 years and not changing them. That's what I was just gonna say, so. It's flexible, yeah. The numbers itself might, we might have 10 electives that we offer, but they're not the same 10 year after year. That's what I was just gonna say, so the numbers game on that.
Okay, so are we gonna wrap this up now? You got any more discussion on this? You have a good idea, Chris, what to?
I do, like I said, I will share
Okay.
I'll speak with Debbie and I'll share the video with her, just so she can see the discussion, just so hear all points, kind of points and
Yeah,
concerns
sounds good.
moving forward, as, take into account this crash day conversation.
Okay, all right. Is there a need for an executive session this evening? No. No need. Okay.
I move to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.